Um, Great. I'm excited to welcome Diego Mesa, the Energy Minister, Energy and Mines Minister from Colombia, here today to the Methane Moment Pavilion. Minister, welcome. We're glad to have you.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Yes. Colombia has been a leader on methane emissions, both exploring the emission sources as well as the solutions for many years. Colombia has been involved in the Global Methane Initiative, the Climate and Clean Air Coalition for many, many years. So it's really great to welcome you here, especially the Energy Ministry. You guys have really been leading the way in South America in exploring this issue. So we're really excited to have you here and to talk a little bit about methane. So,
yes, and that's something that we provided continuity among different administrations. As you said, we joined the Global Methane Coalition back in 2004. Then in 2012, we joined the Climate and Clean Air Coalition. And since then, we've been also doing other things related to reducing methane emissions, especially in the oil and gas sector. Mm-hmm. We also have Ecopetrol, which is our national oil company, joined this oil and gas partnership to reduce methane emissions. So I think we're on the right track, and it's been a long journey, but I think it's well worth it.
It's great that you mentioned Ecopetrol. How's the collaboration been with them? There's always a lot of perceived tension in between governments and oil and gas companies, but I think it's been a little bit more different in Colombia.
Yes, we have very good collaboration. As you know, one of the main commitments that we've made as a country is that last December we announced that we were increasing our commitment to reduce CO2 emissions by 2030. So we went from 20%, which was the commitment in Paris, mm-hmm. to 51%, and we've ratified that here in Glasgow, and we're going to carbon neutrality in 2050. Ecopetrol, which is obviously going to take part in that, they have a commitment to reduce by 30% their CO2 emissions or greenhouse gas emissions by 2025, and they're also looking at carbon neutrality by 2050. So they're very well aligned, but other companies that are part of their group, because Ecopetrol is a group of companies, have already, for example, announced carbon neutrality for next year. The most relevant one is Senate, which is the company that does all the crude oil transportation for Ecopetrol. So I think we're very well aligned, and there's another important aspect. And when I talk about reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 51% as a country, our share as a sector from the mines and energy sector in Colombia is about 11.2 million tons of CO2 per year. And that's almost exactly the same as the total emissions from Ecopetrol. Mm-hmm. And taking into account that Ecopetrol is not only the biggest company in our sector, is the biggest company in Colombia. A way for people to understand that and get context is that from the sector we're going to reduce emissions that are equivalent to eliminating all the emissions from Ecopetrol.
That's fantastic. That's really exciting to hear. I've been working on this issue for a long time, and back when I was just getting started trying to build opportunities around the world for collaboration on methane emissions, I talked to a lot of people, and everyone said, Colombia, you got to talk to the Colombians. They're at the forefront of all of this. What makes you think that Colombia? What makes methane and especially methane emission reductions in the energy sector? Why has Colombia been such a leader on this? What has been the special sauce that has led Colombia to take on this leadership role?
Well, I think we're very serious about being a leader in fighting climate change. And as you know, methane emissions are the second source globally of greenhouse gas emissions. So we did an assessment, and we were the first sector in Colombia to come up with an integral climate change plan. And emissions of methane feature about 10 to 12% of the total greenhouse gas emissions from the mining and energy sector. So, we were able to quantify that, identify the actions that we need to take, and I think as long as you have clear measurement of what you need to do, then it's easier to commit. So, it's been very well planned, and I think that's why we can say today that, after such a long and strong work that we've done in this space of, greenhouse gases, looking at methane becomes a priority for our sector in Colombia.
Mm-hmm. That's great. As you all have approached these issues, and through the exploration of both emissions as well as the development of policies and solutions, are there any specific barriers that you've faced, or at any point where greater collaboration with other partners would have been helpful, or did help? Because I think one of the things that's so great to talk to you about is that there's many other countries in Latin America, especially South America, that are starting to look at the same things that you're looking at. And so are there lessons that you have learned as you've tried to deal with these issues that could be imparted to Ecuador and in Argentina and Peru and others that are beginning to look at this?
I think one of the most valuable lessons learned throughout this process is to have a very open discussion with the companies themselves, right? And once they put that in the table and they understand that the methane emissions is not only also an environmental issue, but it has a potential from an economic point of view because they can, do a better management of their resources, then it becomes, a very constructive conversation. But if you don't talk to the companies about it, then it could just go under the radar, and then you want to be able to target this source, which is significant for the oil and gas sector in general, not only in Latin America but around the world. So I think talking to the companies and telling them we have an issue here that we need to address in collaboration, but this issue will also give you opportunities to have a better management of your resources. And the reason I mention this is because with this conversation, for example, with the COP26, and we've been working with you guys on having regulation for flaring that's going to come out, and we can talk about that in a minute, has led the COP26 to use that gas, for example, for auto generation. In their oil production sites. So it makes sense for them from both an environmental point of view and also from an economic point of view.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. It's something that in the climate space, so often we're talking about projects that simply cost billions of dollars, and in this space we're talking about things that save money and provide multiple benefits, from climate and public health, air quality impacts, to energy sources that otherwise were wasted. So that's really exciting to hear. And that is a good segue to my next question, which is you have been working on developing regulatory policies for the oil and gas sector, methane emissions. The draft of those regulations closed not too long ago. When do you expect to have those finalized, and can you give us kind of a preview of what those might look like, without putting yourself in legal problems or anything?
Sure. But so we issue the draft regulations for public consultation back in August. Mm-hmm. It's obviously mandated by law in Colombia that we have to put this into the public. The draft regulations were out for most of the month of August. We received a lot of comments from the companies, so we're now in the process of addressing that. As you know, we're focusing obviously on flaring and fugitive emissions of methane. Now we're incorporating the comments that we receive, and I have a commitment from my team that will issue the final draft, the final actual regulation before the end of the month.
That's
so
fantastic.
I think in November we'll have the regulation in place, and very much looking forward to it. And I think it was a good exercise to obviously get all these comments from the companies.
That's fantastic. Today, later today, at 1 o'clock, we have the launch of the Global Methane Pledge, which Colombia is going to be part of.
Yep.
which is fantastic. And I think the regulations that you're going to be announcing soon is exactly the kinds of policies that we need to see, because it's fine to have a pledge, but at the end of the day, we need on the ground policies and implemented actions to really start cutting emissions. So I think, again, Colombia, you're really setting the path forward here. So that's fantastic. If you could give encouragement or anything to your fellow countries, your neighboring countries, especially Argentina, which is beginning to look at this issue, and they're also signing on to the global methane pledge. What would you tell them? What would you say to encourage them to follow you all down this path that you're on?
Well, I think I'll tell my colleagues in Latin America that this is critical to achieve all the commitments that we've done as a region in the fight against climate change. I will just stress the point that we discussed before. This is an issue that has benefits not only from the environmental point of view, but also from an economic point of view for the companies that can address this issue of methane emissions. And I think one thing that it's key in Colombia that we haven't discussed in detail, but I think it's also important from other cities, major cities in Latin American countries, is quality of air. And when you look at Colombia, the major cities, Bogota, Medellin, Cali, more than CO2 emissions, quality of air is an issue for us. And one way to tackle that is through reducing methane emissions as well. So I think there's significant opportunities to address this collectively, and I think if we can provide some support based on the lessons learned and on the work that we've done over the last 17 years or so, we would be very happy to lead on that front in Latin America.
That's fantastic. Yeah, the co-benefits of methane reduction and air quality are enormous. And when you have methane, it's typically associated with volatile organic compounds, so that's a big ozone precursor. So that's really great. Well, you've been very generous with your time here today, and we really appreciate you coming by the Methane Moment Pavilion. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your stay here in Scotland, and look forward to working with you all in the coming months and years, and hopefully dragging you around to other parts of Latin America to help push the rest of Latin America to follow your path.
Yeah, so. Thank you very much for the invitation. It was a pleasure to be here, and anything that we can do to help our fellow friends in Latin America to fight methane emissions, we'll be happy to do it. And our president is fully committed to be a regional leader in the fight against climate change. So we're here to help.
Great. Thank you so much.
Very much. Thank you. Good.